What happens when a beloved musician sits down for what should be a friendly morning show interview, only to face an unexpected interrogation that exposes the ugly side of daytime television? Today we're diving into the shocking moment when Teddy Swims appeared on The View, and everything went completely off the rails. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how ego and personal agendas can destroy what should have been a celebration of artistic achievement. If you want to see how quickly things can spiral out of control when professionalism takes a backseat to personal drama, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about what happened here. The studio lights were blazing as Teddy Swims walked onto the View set, his signature smile lighting up the room. The audience erupted in applause as he made his way to the guest chair, clearly excited to meet the soulful singer who had captured hearts across the globe with his powerful voice and genuine personality. He waved to the crowd, his energy infectious as always. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incredibly talented Teddy Swims," Whoopi announced, though Joy Behar was already leaning forward in her chair with a look that suggested this interview might not go as smoothly as everyone expected. "Thank you so much for having me," Teddy said, settling into his chair with that natural charisma that had made him a fan favorite. "I'm really excited to be here and talk about the new album." "Well, we're excited too." Joy jumped in before anyone else could speak, her tone already carrying an edge that seemed out of place for what should have been a light-hearted morning show segment. "Though I have to say, I'm curious about some of the choices you've been making lately." The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly not expecting Joy to dive straight into what sounded like confrontational territory. Teddy's expression shifted slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Choices? I'm not sure what you mean," he replied, his voice still warm, but with a hint of confusion. "Well, let's talk about your recent collaborations," Joy continued, pulling out what appeared to be prepared notes. "Some people are saying you're selling out, abandoning your roots for more commercial success. What do you say to those critics?" The studio fell noticeably quieter. This wasn't the typical softball question most guests received on morning television. Teddy took a moment before responding, clearly trying to process why the interview had taken such an aggressive turn so quickly. "I think music is about connecting with people," he said carefully. "If working with different artists and exploring different sounds means more people get to experience something that moves them, then I'm proud of that choice. But at what cost?" Joy pressed, her voice getting sharper. "You started as this authentic, soulful artist singing in small venues, and now you're doing pop collaborations and performing at corporate events. Doesn't that feel like a betrayal of everything you stood for?" The other hosts were visibly uncomfortable now. Sunny Hostin tried to interject with, "I think what Joy is trying to say," but Joy cut her off with a wave of her hand. "No, I think I can speak for myself, Sunny," Joy snapped, not even looking at her colleague. "I'm asking a legitimate question about artistic integrity." Teddy's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his voice level. "I don't think there's anything wrong with growth and evolution as an artist. The heart behind the music hasn't changed, even if the production or the venues have." "Really?" Joy laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've completely abandoned the people who supported you from the beginning in favor of chasing mainstream success and bigger paychecks." "That's not fair," Teddy said, his voice growing firmer. "My fans have grown with me, and I've never forgotten where I came from or who believed in me first." "Haven't you, though?" Joy leaned back in her chair with a smug expression. "When was the last time you performed at one of those small venues? When was the last time you did something for your original fan base without it being part of some corporate promotional campaign?" The audience was silent now, sensing the tension that had completely overtaken what should have been a celebratory interview. Whoopi was making subtle gestures trying to redirect the conversation, but Joy seemed determined to continue her line of attack. "I perform for my fans all the time," Teddy replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. "Just because the venues are bigger doesn't mean the connection is any less real." "Oh, please," Joy scoffed, Performing in arenas for people who bought tickets through corporate partnerships is not the same as singing for people who discovered you in dive bars and small clubs. You know that. What I know, Teddy said, his voice taking on a steelier edge, is that music should bring people together, not be used to divide them or make them feel like they're not worthy of experiencing something beautiful just because they discovered it later than others. Joy's eyes flashed with something that looked almost like anger. So now I'm divisive for pointing out the obvious? For asking questions that your publicist probably told you no one would dare ask? No, Teddy said, sitting forward in his chair. You're being disrespectful for turning what should be a conversation about music into a personal attack based on assumptions you're making about my motivations and my character. The tension in the studio was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Sarah Haynes attempted to lighten the mood by saying, "Well, I think we can all agree that Teddy's voice is absolutely incredible regardless." But Joy wasn't having it. "This isn't about his voice," Joy said dismissively. "This is about authenticity, and whether someone can claim to represent something when their actions suggest they've moved far beyond it." Teddy's expression hardened as he looked directly at Joy, clearly done with trying to navigate around her hostility. "You know what? I came here thinking this was going to be a conversation about music and connecting with people. But it seems like you had a completely different agenda from the moment I sat down. My agenda is asking real questions, instead of the fluff pieces you're probably used to." Joy shot back, her voice dripping with condescension. "Maybe you're just not used to dealing with actual journalists who don't care about stroking your ego." "Journalists?" Teddy repeated, his eyebrows raising. "Is that what this is? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels more like someone trying to tear down something positive for the sake of creating drama." Joy's face flushed red at the implication. "Don't you dare question my credentials or my professionalism. I've been doing this longer than you've been performing." "Then act like it," Teddy said quietly, but his words carried across the silent studio like a thunderclap. The other hosts looked mortified. Whoopi was clearly trying to figure out how to salvage the situation, while Ana Navarro was staring at Joy with obvious disapproval. But Joy seemed oblivious to everyone else's discomfort, too focused on the battle she had created. "Excuse me?" Joy's voice rose to a near shriek. "Did you just tell me how to do my job? You're a guest on this show, and I suggest you remember that. And you're a host who's supposed to create a welcoming environment for guests, not ambush them with personal attacks disguised as interview questions." Teddy replied, his voice staying calm even as Joy's became more unhinged. "Personal attacks? I'm asking about your career choices, which is literally what interviews are for," Joy snapped. "No," Teddy said firmly. "You're making accusations about my character and my motivations without knowing anything about me as a person. There's a difference between asking about career choices and calling someone a sellout on national television." Joy leaned forward aggressively. "If the shoe fits," the gasp from the audience was audible. Even some of the crew members behind the cameras were shaking their heads in disbelief. This had crossed every line of professional interview etiquette. "Wow," Teddy said, sitting back in his chair with a look of genuine amazement. "You really just said that on live television? To someone you've never had a real conversation with before today?" "I call it like I see it," Joy said defiantly, as if proud of her behavior. "That's what people tune in for. Honest conversations, not publicity stunts." "Joy, maybe we should," Whoopi tried to interject, but Joy cut her off again. "No, Whoopi, this is important. People need to hear this. They need to understand that when artists abandon their principles for money, someone needs to call them out on it." Teddy shook his head slowly, a sad smile crossing his face. "You know what's really tragic about this? You're so determined to prove some point about authenticity that you're completely missing what authenticity actually looks like." "Oh, please enlighten me," Joy said sarcastically, crossing her arms. Authenticity is treating people with respect, even when you disagree with their choices. Teddy began, his voice gaining strength. It's having conversations instead of launching attacks. It's being curious about someone's story instead of deciding what their story is before you even meet them. Don't lecture me about authenticity when you're sitting there in your designer clothes talking about connecting with regular people, Joy shot back. These clothes were a gift from fans who wanted to show appreciation for my music, Teddy replied evenly. But even if I bought them myself, since when did having nice things become evidence of betraying your values? Are you wearing clothes from a thrift store right now, Joy? Is your makeup from the drugstore? Does owning nice things automatically make you fake? Joy's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for a comeback. But nothing came. The logic of his response had clearly caught her off guard. That's different, she finally managed weakly. How is it different? Teddy pressed. How is it different? Except that you've decided I'm the villain in whatever story you're trying to tell here. Because I earned my position through years of hard work and paying my dues, Joy said, her voice getting defensive. And you don't think I have? Teddy's voice was quiet but incredulous. You don't think singing in small venues for years, building a following one person at a time, writing songs in my bedroom, and posting them online, hoping someone would connect with them, counts as paying dues? Not when you abandon all of that the first chance you get for mainstream success, Joy insisted. I didn't abandon anything, Teddy said, his frustration finally showing through his controlled demeanor. I grew. I evolved. I found opportunities to reach more people with the same heart and the same message I've always had. But apparently, in your world, growth equals selling out. Joy scoffed. When growth means forgetting where you came from, yes, it does. But I haven't forgotten where I came from, Teddy said, his voice rising slightly. Just because I'm not still performing in the exact same venues doesn't mean I've forgotten the lessons I learned there or the people who supported me. Some of my biggest fans are people who discovered me in those early days, and they're proud to see me succeeding on a bigger stage. Are they? Or are they just telling you what you want to hear? Joy asked, with a cruel smile. Joy asked, cruel smile. That question hung in the air like poison. Teddy stared at her for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. You know what, Joy? I feel sorry for you. Joy's face went white, then red, then purple, as those words hit her like a physical blow. You feel sorry for me? You feel sorry for me? Her voice was climbing to a pitch that made several audience members visibly uncomfortable. Yes, I do, Teddy said calmly, looking directly at her with genuine sadness in his eyes. Because someone who's truly secure in themselves and their accomplishments doesn't need to tear down others to feel important. Someone who's genuinely happy doesn't spend their time trying to find reasons why other people's success is somehow fake or undeserved. Joy stood up so abruptly that her chair rolled backward and nearly hit the backdrop. How dare you psychoanalyze me? How dare you sit there and pretend you understand anything about my life or my career? Joy, please sit down, Whoopi said urgently, clearly realizing this was spiraling completely out of control. Let's take a breath here. No, I will not take a breath, Joy shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at Teddy. I will not sit here and be insulted by some wannabe soul singer who thinks he knows everything about the entertainment industry after 5 minutes of success. The audience was dead silent now, watching in horror as one of the show's longtime hosts completely lost her composure on live television. Teddy remained seated, his expression a mixture of disappointment and genuine concern. This is exactly what I'm talking about, he said quietly. You're so angry, and I don't even think it's really about me. What happened to you, Joy? What made you so bitter that you can't celebrate someone else's journey without trying to find ways to diminish it? Bitter. Joy's voice cracked slightly on the word. I'm not bitter. I'm experienced. I know how this industry chews people up and spits them out, and I know the difference between real talent and manufactured success. And you've decided I'm manufactured? Teddy asked, his voice remaining steady despite the chaos erupting around him. I've decided you're naive, Joy shot back, her hands shaking slightly. But you're just the latest in a long line of artists who get built up by the machine only to be discarded when the next shiny new thing comes along. Maybe, Teddy said with a small shrug. But even if that happens, at least I'll know I stayed true to myself and treated people with kindness along the way. Can you say the same? That question hit Joy like a slap. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it, then opened it again. For the first time in the entire interview, she seemed genuinely speechless. You know what? She finally managed, her voice trembling with rage. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by some nobody from nowhere who thinks he's figured out life because he can sing a few pretty songs. Joy, that's enough. Anna Navarro finally spoke up, her voice firm. This is completely inappropriate. Don't you tell me what's appropriate? Joy whirled on her colleague. I've been carrying this show for years, while the rest of you sit there and nod along with whatever garbage the producers want us to push. The camera operators were frantically trying to figure out where to point their equipment as the entire panel erupted into chaos. Sunny was trying to get Joy to sit down, Whoopi was signaling desperately to the producers, and Sarah was just sitting there with her mouth agape. This is insane, Joy continued, her voice getting more unhinged by the second. I ask one real question, one honest question about artistic integrity, and suddenly I'm the villain? Suddenly I'm the problem? This is exactly what's wrong with this business. Nobody wants to hear the truth anymore. Joy, Teddy said, standing up slowly. The truth is that you didn't ask me about artistic integrity. You attacked my character without knowing anything about me. You made assumptions about my motivations, and then got angry when I defended myself. That's not journalism. That's just cruelty. Cruelty? Joy laughed bitterly. You want to know about cruelty? Cruelty is watching talented people get chewed up by an industry that only cares about profit. Cruelty is seeing authentic voices get drowned out by manufactured nonsense. Cruelty is having to sit here day after day and pretend that every flash in the pan artist is somehow special and meaningful. Then why do you do it? Teddy asked simply. If it makes you this miserable, if it fills you with this much anger and resentment, why do you keep doing it? Joy stared at him, her mouth working silently as if she was trying to find words that wouldn't come. The question had clearly hit something deep and painful, something she probably hadn't even admitted to herself. I do this because someone has to, she finally whispered, her voice breaking slightly. Someone has to ask the hard questions. Someone has to hold people accountable. But that's not what you're doing here, Teddy said gently. You're not holding me accountable for anything real. You're just lashing out because you're hurt about something that has nothing to do with me. Stop, Joy said, her voice barely audible now. Just stop talking. Joy. Whoopi said carefully. Maybe we should go to commercial. No. No. Joy said suddenly, her voice sharp again. No. We're not going to commercial. We're going to finish this, right now. She turned back to Teddy, her eyes blazing. You want to know why I do this? I do this because I've watched this industry destroy people I cared about. I've seen what happens when people believe their own hype, when they think the machine that built them up will always be there to catch them when they fall. And you think attacking me is somehow protecting me from that? Teddy asked, incredulous. I think someone needs to remind you that none of this lasts forever. Joy said, her voice cold now. Someone needs to tell you that all this success, all these opportunities, all these fans, they can disappear overnight. And when they do, you better hope you remember who you really are underneath all the glitter and glamour. Teddy nodded slowly. You're absolutely right about that, Joy. Success is temporary, opportunities come and go, and fame is fleeting. But you know what lasts? How you treat people, the kindness you show others, the respect you give to people who are just trying to share something beautiful with the world. That's what really matters. And that's what people remember long after the music stops. Joy's face crumpled slightly, as if his words had finally broken through whatever wall of anger and resentment she had built around herself. She looked around the studio, seeing the faces of her colleagues, the concerned expressions of the crew, the shocked silence of the audience, and for the first time seemed to realize what had just happened. "Cut," she said quietly to the cameras. "Cut to commercial." But the damage was already done, and everyone in that studio knew they had just witnessed something that would change everything. That's the story of how a simple interview turned into a complete meltdown that exposed the dark side of daytime television. If you enjoyed this breakdown of what really happened behind the scenes, make sure you subscribe for more celebrity drama analysis, and let me know in the comments, do you think Joy Behar was justified in her questioning, or did she completely cross the line with her behavior toward Teddy Swims?